So it says here that from we said before, that Tanya is not only another book in the library of Judaism, but it really is different than anything basically before, that this is a revelation of godliness that never came before. The whole lineage of Chassidus is a revelation of godliness. That before the Alter Rebbe, there was no opportunity for this kind of revelation. And only then, where after the Alter Rebbe came out of jail, and there was a fight with Kitrug and Shemayim, whether or not we could allow this, only at that point was, and we know the story there, you might have mentioned before, the story of the crown jewel, right? The story of the crown jewel is
the diamond.
The diamond that the king's son was extremely sick, and nothing in the world helped. They went to doctors, and there was nothing they could do until one person said that there is a certain stone. And if we have that stone, and if we crush it, then maybe if we dilute it, we might have a chance of saving him. And it found out that actually that's the crown jewel, which is the most expensive one in the world. And the king said, to heal my son, I will do anything. And we give that's the mashal of basically of Chassidus, that even though it's really from the highest places, and we're revealing the great Elokus Mamish, and therefore, and what are we doing? We're diluting it. Like basically today, you have Chassidus on the floor and you step on it. And it's from the highest minyanim. In order to save the Yidden, it was worth it. And if it's going to go into a person's heart and go to his nefesh or kiss, the pinpoint that he has, it's going to awaken him, or in us, hopefully that are a little further than that, and we are a little aware of our nefesh or kiss, but it's going to give us, and when Chassidus does that to us, then it's worth the fact that we're taking and wasting so much, millions and billions of dollars from the stone and just diluting it, and maybe a little bit is going to revive on the shop. So, and that was the big kitrug that was on the Alter Rebbe. That wasn't on the Alter Rebbe, but on the Alter Rebbe and the Maggid and the Baal Shem Tov, that they were now going to be Megala. They're going to reveal Chassidus and take the stone and crush it, and did they have a right to take such high inyanim and do that? And a lot of people take a look and it says, what are you going into Kabbalah? It's not Kabbalah, but still it's Elokus. So he says that before Peterburg, so Yutzis Kislev was really a nitzachon that right now this can be done. So till the Alter Rebbe, there wasn't that opportunity, and only then were they given the kaiches from above to be able to do this. So we find that our Rabbeim, our Nisiim, accepted upon Makbilim, Oisei Gila Kusha, Gila Chassidus, this Galas Lukus of Torah, that our Rabbeim go and compare this revelation to the revelation that happened at Har Sinai by Matan Torah. That's how great the revelation of Tanya was. And this is the revelation and the Matan Torah of Pnimiyas Torah. It was what we call the Luchas Hashniyas of Pnimiyas Torah. Because the first ones were given like Ba'emer through the Rashbi. Just like there was two types of Luchas. One originally, and then the Luchas got broken, and then there was another one. The same thing is, the first one is the Lag Ba'ema, the Rashbi was the first one, and the Alter Rebbe the second time, then the Alter Rebbe gave up that. Isn't that beautiful?
Rashbi did the first Luchas?
Like the first Luchas. Not that it didn't succeed, but it remained still very high. It didn't go down to everybody. And there's a lot more on that which I really have to look into, but that's what it says. It says, then we talk about that it's Gilui Elaki. So I want to look at the actual here. Let's talk about Gilui Elaki. I talked about, we'll see in a minute. It says that Zelu Zet Basalakim Hashem made this, that is up to everything. Whenever we see Ruchnias, we see Gashmias, we see Tov, we see Ra, there's always an opponent, an opposition. The same thing is in the Indian of Kedusha. There are a lot of Chas v'Shalom. I mean, unfortunately, kaichas of Tumah in the world. And the greater the Gilui Elaki is, the higher there is these halamis and asterim, all these obstacles and hiddenness that come from inside and from outside. Like we say, inside meaning in a person's body, he has a nefesh abamis fighting him, and outside are all the other indulgences in this world and all the tumah in this world. So the same thing too. The more there's ruchnias, the more the ra is gover, the more the ra strengthens itself and tries to fight. To stop it.
You're big,
the greater you are, the greater Yetzirah. And that's how we find in history through all the generations. And whenever there was a Gilui Elokei in the world, whenever there was a revelation of godliness, there were a lot of obstacles in the way to stop it, to the point that people had to go on Mesiras Nefesh. To get through that, they had to break through. Even when we look at Eretz Yisrael, there were so many obstacles until we finally got the land, and on every single piece, there was a lot of blood spilled and a lot of hard work, and etc. So it says the same thing. It started already when? From the 10 Isyamas that Avraham Avinu had, the 10 tests that Avraham had, and all the different sorrows that they went through, the Avos, and later on Golos Mitzrayim, and the 40 years in the Midbar. The Midbar was full of snakes and scorpions, etc., till they were able to get into Eretz Yisrael. And the second time Eretz Yisrael is where the Chalutzim went, and they had to fight them. So we understand that the Gilui Elokei, that there must have been a very high revelation of godliness. And the truth is, in life, whenever you go through difficulties, you know that it's because of there must be something very great there, that there's so many obstacles fighting it. That just like every single individual, in order for him to get godliness in his soul, he too has to fight and what do you call it, and win over many, many different kinds of difficulties. And the greater the godliness that he's going to bring into himself, the more he has to put into it, and the more he has to work on himself to be able to become a vessel to be able to take this all in. And how much more so in general as Yidden. In other words, if we see this in individuals, how much more so when we're talking about everybody, the nation, and others, in order for the world to be able to receive this great godliness and this great Gilui and revelation, we have to work very, very hard to be able to conquer over all these obstacles to a point of Mesiras Nefesh. And that's why we're in this great Golus, because we're waiting for Mashiach for the greatest Gilui, and we have to meanwhile unfortunately go through this. Therefore, when the time of it came for the Torah Sachsidus to become revealed, since it was so high, there had to be which was like a chiyuv, to go through all these difficulties to be able to go through these Zionist tests of the Alter Rebbe and all the Rebbeim, and almost all of them, many of them sat in jail and numerous times and fighting, etc. And then we know there were a lot of great stories about the Mesiras Nefesh of Baal Shem Tov and his Talmidim, and even more so with the Mesiras of the Alter Rebbe and his students. There were so many. That unfortunately there were those who did not understand Chassidus, starting from the Gra and on, and they even before that actually, that they went and put all kinds of charamim, even what do you call it, halachic sanctions against the Chassidim, and they really tried to get rid of their parnasa and just be right of them, run it in the shul, and etc. Do you ever read the story of what's his name, the Chassid? There was a chassid, it's written in the Tamim, the whole story about him. He was a child, he lost his father, and he had a stepfather, and the stepfather was a very, very, very big, his father-in-law actually never spoke against Chassidim, his father-in-law. On the other hand, his father-in-law was not father-in-law, I'm sorry, his stepfather. The stepfather, he said the only way he'll take the wife with her son, he'll take the wife, but not the son, is if he sits and learns the whole day in shul from morning to night, and only comes up to what's the name of the chassid?
I don't know.
I forgot the name of the chassid. And to make a long story short, like he was fought with Tanya, he once went to look for Chassidim, he saw them, and he couldn't stand the gaiva, the conceit of the Rav in the shul, and felt that he was like, who knows, like all the great Tanaim and Amoraim, and he compared himself, and it bothered him, and he saw once Chassidim the way they davened, and he couldn't get over it, and he was pulled to it, until he started learning Tanya to learn the book himself in the middle of the night, and he was fought, and they took this little boy and they almost beat him to death. So the Chassidim went through a lot of pains, birth pains, to be able to take on this derech. Okay. The printing of the Tanya. In this we'll understand why the Alter Rebbe did not want, originally when he wrote the Tanya, he didn't want to print it. It wasn't just because he was modest, but he meant that it wasn't only a technical thing. It basically meant that he was going to permeate Ruchnistika Ar into the Gashmistika world and the Gashmistika person, basically permeating and revealing the spirituality in us. And this was something that was going to leave a mark and going to be forever. And like the Alter Rebbe wrote when he printed, the Alter Rebbe wrote there, that it was something that was going to be for the Dori Doris. Once he gives out this Tanya, it's changing the world forever for all generations. And for that, you needed very, very high spiritual kaiches. And this is, by the way, he writes here, the great importance that the Rebbe gives to printing Tanyas, and that's why the Rebbe wanted. We know Tanyas printed in every single city around the world, because when you print a Tanya in that place, it's leaving a indelible mark, a spiritual mark on it forever. I never thought of that.
They ever print Tanya in a spaceship or not yet? We should try to
I
do
don't
that.
know. I don't know. I know we did print the Chalchana many years ago. Every Meisit printed almost in every country. There are a lot of them.
And also in the submarines. I'm just thinking about it. But they will go everywhere. The question is if there is a point of doing it or not. Probably.
Of course there's a point. And the Rebbe writes, he writes here, that the godliness then does not come to you from another place, but where does it come to you? From that place itself. So when you print it there, that place itself becomes sanctified, and Tanya comes from there. So it should be in space, it should be all over. Today, actually, everything is online. So once it's online, we're already up in the clouds.
Traveling through spiders.
So the Alter Rebbe, therefore, originally did not want to print it, and then he agreed to print it. And the way there are two haskamas here. So the first one is from Reb Zusha Balapoli, and he writes that why did the Alter Rebbe agree to print it? Because there were so many traces. They were like little pamphlets, and there were so many of them, and there were so many mistakes in them because they were reprinted and rewritten, etc. That from all different places. So because of all the copies, it's not today you copy it all the same, whatever. Right? They had to copy it. There were a lot of mistakes there, and therefore the Alter Rebbe felt that he has to do that. That's why he writes there, the Rebbe, that it's Seifrim Mishunim. The Rebbe writes in his Akdama that it's a piece Sofrim, Shonim, or Mishunim. So it's different, also different kinds of prints. And also, why were there so many mistakes also? Is because a lot of misnagdim went and changed words in it on purpose. They put in words of fear of apikosis. So they went and so a lot of them copied, and they copied it, and they spread it. So because of that, in order to prove that this is not, what they wanted to do is they wanted to prove that this is only a cult. They called it the cult, the sect, the cult, right? That was going against Yiddishkeit. And as a matter of fact, what they say very interestingly, which I never knew, is that when they gave to the Gra, Tanya, they gave them all the mistakes. But they put it on purpose to show them that there's opportunity. And that's why he came out with Chayrim and Siddur. The Alter Rebbe, therefore, had no choice, and he had to do it. And you know that nothing is, everything is Hashgacha Pratis. So he understood that now is the time, Hashgacha Pratis, this is the time to print. And both of the haskamas that the Alter Rebbe got, one of them, both of them were from the two Talmidim of Mal Shem Tov. One was Reb Zusha Napoli, one was Yehuda Leib Cohen. And both of them, they answer in the haskama they write the two tainas that the Makatrogim was saying that the time didn't come. In other words, okay, this is spiritual, but it's not the time for the world to have it yet. So when they write the haskamas, we see here, you have it over there, Yehuda Leib. This is haskama.
Okay.
No, not here. For a second. Here. Haskama. So we have here Haskama of Rav Achotzim first initially kick Kadosh Yamalai Marina Rav Shulam to Shemanapoli, and Rav Achotzim first initially kick Kadosh Yamalai Marina Rav Yehuda Leib Kain. Right? So he says that the first one, Rav Yehuda Leib, is Madgish. When is he right? Eis Yismach Yisrael, the scholars Divrei Kodshay. Where is that? Eis Yismach Yisrael. Here. This is the one about Rabbi Yehuda Leib. So he writes, Ke'ez, Yismach Yisrael is in the middle, the scholars Divrei Kodshay. So Ke'ez, now Yisrael is going to be, right?
It's the right time to do it.
It's the right time to do it. Shakavana Gam LeRab Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. He says Yisrael, and he stresses the word Yisrael, he meant the Baal Shem Tov. That the Tanya actually is the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. And he says, right? Besides, you want to say that this is a time that Yisrael is happy. Besides that, he's Meramis that all this comes from the Baal Shem Tov. Yisrael, the Baal Shem Tov will be happy that his Torah now, it's not something new, but it's from the Reb Zusha writes, when he writes the date of when he wrote this, so on the bottom he writes here, Tovei Shnas Piduseinu. And by that he's trying to say that with the Sefer Tanya, Yetzu Yisrael across Mashiach Tzidkenu. That with the Tanya we're going to go to Mashiach. So Shnas Piduseinu, now that it was printed, it's going to be a Pidus.
Yeah, without the hay, without the alafim, just it's a like the small counting.
It's a bigger counting.
Yeah, right.
And a smaller.
Right.
I think
without the tafshin, maybe.
Without the hay tafshin.
Without the hay, right. Yeah.
Because he wrote, a parashas tovei shnas piduseinu. How is it piduseinu? Only if you leave out the hay.
Very nice.
Okay. And with this he's saying that with Sefer Tanya will go up. Meaning that even though the other generations, they were very high in Yanim, and this was all in Sod, and you weren't only getting, in other words, people knew about the Zayar, knew about Kabbalah, but it was only to certain Yichud Tefillah. But now there's a time we're tasting Erev Shabbos, we're tasting the Indian of Shabbos, so therefore now we have to start eating the food of Shabbos, and we're preparing ourselves for Yom Kippur. At the end of the 60s, so that's what he writes here, that the scholars of Baal Shem Tov was in Hey Alaf and Tov Tzadik Daled L'Briya, which is very, very close to the Chatzos of Yom HaShishi, Shnas Tov Tov. The Alter Rebbe was later. So therefore now it's already time that we can do this. Yisrael Yalev, again we're going to the first one. Right? Shnas Tov Kuf Nun Vav. And he says, what is Tov Kuf Nun Vav? It's a remes to Tanya, Taurus, the Shomer, the Ruach. Right, that the Tanya is a Ktaris, it's a healing and it's a spice and in a sense for the Yeshama and the Ruach of Am Yisrael that is suffering the Gashmias and suffering Ruchnias from all the Yisurim of Ikfid the Mashiach. And therefore it's time to be Mfarsimit and give the Yidden the Keach to be able to stand strong of all the difficulties before Mashiach.
And how does this person know that that's what he meant?
I guess it's
Kabbalah.
It's not Kabbalah. This is something taught when you learn Tanya Yeshiva. You put it down to us.
Yeah, I'm saying it was
it
passed
goes
down.
from one chassid to the next chassid.
In that way.
But they here they don't say the source.
In the Tanya,
no, in the Pneunia.
I know. I looked at my husband, different fucking, and all of a sudden he was telling me things I never knew of because that's why there's so many farshim on Tanya today.
So much
From the Siddim, there's so much to say on it. And
You got a whole set of it or just
no, my daughter just didn't. I asked her for it again. And I have in the house like different ones now. I never learned that.
I wanted to get a whole
Tanya
set
for many years, but this is
maybe they wanted for the sale $100 for
I'm just going to get it now. I forgot.
Instead of $15 a book,
Yeah.
they sell 10 books in $100 or 103. That's what the
For
sale.
this set?
For this sale.
Again,
I was almost getting it.
I was so excited when I did this.
Yeah. But meanwhile, I got the first one. I have it at home. Yeah.
And he writes here a story that I just told actually that this is all connected to the story that I said that story that I started about the diamond.
Yes.
It's from Pinchas Karitzer. That first was a very against spreading Chassidus. But he's the one who came up with the story, the mashal of the son that was very sick. Pinchas Karitzer, right? He writes here for you Medayak that if you see the great deal in the signatures of Reb Zusha that writes about himself Cotton, because his whole Inyan was that he was an Anav. He was known for his modesty. Yeah. And also later on in the signatures of the children of the Rabbi, later on we see the three signatures Naskamis of the three children. So there we see their Naskamis, but they're what they write there. So it says there that each one tells who the person was. The Mittler Rebbe, that then became the Rebbe, writes about his father. Hagon Achosid Kodesh Yisrael Maranav Rabbanim. Right? Reb Chaim Aaron writes Hagon Achosid Maranav Rabbanim. And Reb Moshe writes Hagon Achosid Bavad. Because each one they wrote according to the darga that they were on. So since Reb Moshe was only a Gon and a Chassid, he wrote about his father Gon and Chassid. Chaim Aaron also wrote that he was Gon Chassid Moran and Rabbanan because he had that. And the middle of Rebbe wrote a Gon and Chassid Kodesh Yisrael Gon and Rabbanan because he had that too. Isn't that beautiful? So each one you see what madriga they want. Okay. Then he writes here Tachlachis. And truth, somebody else can read this. Huh?
I'm good. I'm very happy to see.
Okay, and then he writes the whole Inyan of why the Tanya explains why the Tanya had to be done because it was instead of Yechids. This is our Yechid, and I think that's a beautiful Inyan here. In the Akdama, what they write here, the Akdama is, we finished last summer, the Akdama is, this has smachas of his three children, and we see that. And Garish Shluchah L'Klos Anshe Shlamenu. This is a letter to send to all of Siddim. Elechem Yishefashimu Elai Right Fake Tzedek. Listen to me, all those that are running after Tzedek, then Vakshi Hashem, looking for Hashem. Yishma Elechem Lakin Magad Lakaten. Hashem, listen to you, the greatest to the lowest. Kol Anash Mercedes Mochas La in Art. The Anash is Anshe Shlamenu Achsidim that are in our Medina and all the Medina surrounding. Isha Makama Yavai L'Shalom Achayim Adelim Nu Netzach Zelavad Amkein Yiratz. So it says, so he writes here, it is known that it is like a word in the mouth of all the Chassidim, the Cholanash. You can't compare listening to Musar like reading from Svarim. And when a person reads, when he reads it, he reads according to his Seichel. Where he's at. More than what he can fathom, he can't. And if his seichel is mevulbul and he's mixed up and he's going in the dark because he really doesn't know what the right way in Avodas Hashem is, the kaishi yachal lirayt is ar ki tayv hagan is b'sfarim. At the ar ki tayv hagan is firm. So then he himself can't even see the depth of the light. And the truth is that when we learn on our own, we don't see all the light that's in it because we are so mitzumtzum and because according to our madrega, like you're right, each one wrote according to their madrega. So that's how we see life and that's how we understand even in the Sfarim. Even though it is sweet, the R to our eyes, and it is what's it called? A salve for the soul. And that's how it is to all the Sifrei Yira. Habnoyim al pisechel and nushi, all these svarim that are built on a person's seichel. The vada einam shavin l'chol nefesh. They can't be the same for everybody. Ki ein kol hasichlim v'deyos shavos, because not everybody's mind is the same. Vein seichel adam zeh misfal every mashem misfal seichel chavero. And one person can become excited about one thing and another about another thing. Each one according to his nature, according to seichel and his nature. Kumash Amar Azal gabe bichas chacham harazim al shishim ribay Yisrael shein they same time. So he says also, like we see the bracha of the Chacham HaRazim. I don't know what the Chacham HaRazim is. I got a Chacham HaRazim about that there are Shishim Ribay Yisrael.
Whenever you see 600,000 Jews together, you say a bracha for Hashem, and he understands like everybody's whatever. Hashem created so many different people. So
Rebishter is Chacham HaRazim the same.
Yeah. Okay,
then each one is not the same, and like the Ramban says, the Melcham Sham, Pirush Sefer. Ferish HaSifri, Rabbi Yeshua Shalem, Ba'isha Sharuch, Ba'ishayachal Alech, Neged Ruch Shachalechet Vecha. Therefore, the Rebbe should put in different tzaddikim in different generations, that they are able to be the light, and they could be able to understand every single ruach of every person according to that answer, which is the whole concept of obviously a Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave Akechas also to Mashpiyah. And a Mashpiyah has to be able to understand each one. And therefore help each one see what he has to see to be able to do Avodas Hashem properly. Allah filu b'sifrei yira asher yisodasam b'harei kodesh midrashe chazal asher ruach Hashem giver bo milasal shainim b'rais which abechol kol echad kol shishim ribei kol Yisrael pertain admitzvos kol shebekal potzer shebemeinu bnei Yisrael kulam iskashim b'rais reisim kasher samachot shebechol. So he says that even the sifrei yira that comes from the highest places. And their minute, their mila is Russian of the Melasa al Shenim. They're only talking about the words of Hashem, and Hashem and Torah are all one. And this goes, and all the 600,000 Yidden the klal and prat to the very lowest and the very highest, so we all are able to connect that Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? And Torah connects us. So we say already that everything is Torah, and Torah connects us to Kadosh Baruch Hu. So that should be enough, right? He says, but that's in a very holistic way. But a person wants to know Aveda what to do by himself. What then? Kinei b'zera kedush. Raise that their close stroke. After it entirely darish b'chlal b'prat pratis. B'chol nefesh pratis b'ol shreshes bar. Rain can call Adam zecher liyasmakim b'fem pratis. So he says, on one hand, Torah is given for everybody, and then there is the pratim. There's something for every prat. The question is, though, how do I access my neshama, and how do I know what Aveda I personally have to do, and what Aveda does every person have to do? So the fact that there was learning Torah, that's and all these Sifrei Musar, and all the great Inyanim, that all the Mataka B'Harei Kodesh, they come from the highest places, but at the bottom line is, how do I know what's for me? And also we find that in halacha, and halachas of what's Isser and Heter, that there is a machlekes of the Tanaim and Mamarazim, and some of them have opinions that I'm in a kotza lakotza. They're one into the other, mamish. And both of them, Elu ve'elu, Divrei Kim Chayim. Lashon Rabim, Elu ve'elu, Divrei Kim Chayim, is Rabim, Al Shem, Makar HaChayim, because they all come from Makar HaChayim, from the Rebishter, that were given the Shamas Yisrael, that are then separated, Derech Klal, L'Shleisha Kav, Yamin Smol, Be'emsa. And they're split into three. Shem Chesed, Dvorah, Tiferes, and each one of us has all three, and yet each one of us is more native to one than another. In the Shamash, Shashasha, Midas Chesed, Hanagas and Kain. In other words, why are the differences in halacha between Elul and Shammai and between all the Tanaim and Amraim? Because and the Rebbe many times when he used to say explain a Rashi, he said the fact that Rashi mentioned Shem Amro means that person, this is past his neshama. You have to know why he's saying it, because it comes to that was his opinion, because that's where he came from, that's where the neshama was connected to, etc. So he says, so there's some neshamas that come from chesed, so therefore they're matet to klape chesed lahakel, therefore they want to be maker, and the opposite, those are from gvura, the opposite. So you find that even in halacha, not only in chassidus and in kabbalah and other inyanim, when it comes to halacha, there's also different opinions. So how much more so when it comes to understanding every soul and what the aved of every race. We're talking about the stars. How much more so then? The inon, the chilur v'chimush of B'maicha. We're talking about now how do you have Av and Yiras Hashem in your heart and your mind. Each one's according to his own shir and who he is. The fum matcha mishar b'libay. What do you mean fum shir delay? Matcha mishar b'libay. What he himself could fathom in his heart according to his nature. I don't know what it says there, but I should have looked at it. So the Rebbe goes on here. Miyadai makirai kaiminahem kol echad ve'echad ma'nashim b'nasenu u'smuchas la asher haya hadibo shalchiva matzu b'neinu. So now the Rebbe is talking to all of Anash, and the Rebbe was a Rebbe on all of Anash, all the world too. But he says that the Medinas that are close by, and we all love each other. V'gilu lefanai kol talumas libam b'maicham. And I, as the Rebbe, know all the what's the talumas of every heart and every mind. And Aved Hashem, Atvuya v'leiv, aleim titof milasi. To them I am now talking, and my heart is filling words. L'sheni eit sefer v'katroisim elu, and ekoyim b'shem l'kutei amorim. So in here I'm putting now the Aved Hashem, keeping everybody in mind of who they are. And when the Rebbe wrote the Tanya, he knew everybody's problems and where they are in Aved Hashem, and they will find an answer in Tanya to their personal problems. Therefore, this became like a bunch of tracing together that is going to put together how can a Yid come close to the Rebbe, and how can any Yid, no matter what, whether he's from Chesed, whether it's from Gvura, what he can fathom, if he can find his answers here in how to be able to serve the Rebbe. So I put it all into these contraces, that they're called the Kutei Amorim. That's why the Rebbe called it the Kutei Amorim. It's a compilation of different words. that are brought together from different Sfarim, be Sofrim. What did we say last time? That who are the Sfarim? Who are the Seifrim? The Seifrim were the Shalah HaKadosh, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Now he's going to explain all this soon. And explains word for word on this, so I really should stop here and explain what he says here. I just want to over quickly to know what he's saying here, and let's just stop for a second. So he writes it like this. In the Akdame Gerish Luchal Shana, so he writes, this is a letter that I'm sending now to all of Anash. The Alter Rebbe explains why is he writing the Sefer. Shahu Kanal Sefer Hadracha B'Avodas Hashem. It is a Sefer of Hadracha in derech of how to do Arucha V'Tzara. That's what he writes later, right? The long way and the short way. The Rebbe's Madgish, he emphasizes that this is meant to be a tachlif, an exchange for Yechidus. Since Yechidus, not everybody can get to the Rebbe. There aren't enough hours to give every person Yechidus. Like he writes, Rebbe writes later, like it says, that it's not the right time for to be able to answer each and every one on their question, the practice, and also Shikha Mitsuya. We walk out of Yechidus and we didn't write it down. We didn't remember even what the Rebbe told us sometimes exactly. We wanted a Bachta, we will tape sometimes. We went back to them. Therefore, the Rebbe says, I wrote down all the answers to all the questions that it should be forever. Yes, the person should be remembered between his eyes, and he won't have to. Not everyone's going to have to come and try to push himself in Yechidus with long lines. And years ago, even with the horse and buggy, still they got there and they have their families, etc., etc. Person opens it up and he finds a margol and nafshay. We'll be able to find an answer. Today, we need more than that. We need explanations on Tanya, and we need a mashpia, and we need even more than that. But I personally, to me, the Igris does that. I don't know where to turn to. I don't know what to go to. I open up, and I feel like the Rebbe is talking to me and talking to me personally and giving me that. But that's what the meaning of Tanya is. It's a gilui of the Torah of Chassidus and Adracha in Avodas Hashem that it started as a hurrah and Adrachas Ishiyas. In other words, these were Yechidus that the Rebbe had with different people on different issues, each according to his erech. And they were by Yechidus by the Rebbe. And when they walked out of the Rebbe, they were Mishtana B'Tzurasa. Right? No. Shahaytchila B'Tzura Shel HaRasi, if you're L'Chalecha L'Fi Arpem, Yechidus L'Rebbe, Mishtana B'Tzurasa. Maybe that's what it means. The Sefer Tanya should be Hadracha Klolis, that every single Yachid could find, well, it's very interesting because it says about Tilim, that Tilim is also for every person. Because David HaMelech went through every single type of Messiah a person could ever go through. So when a person says Tilim, he has the cases he needs, and David HaMelech was able to relate to him. David HaMelech went through every single Messiah. He went through cold, he went through hot, he had problems with wives, he had problems with children, he had problems with his own wife, he had problems with his children being married with Malchus, and he had problems with poverty, he had problems with Ashiras. He went through every single issue that we can think of. He went and Yisurim, he had all of it. So therefore, he was able to relate. And when we say Tilim, we can find the Margrel and Nafsha. Same thing as in Tanya. The Rebbe had met with all these, every single issue, and he put together, these answers were put together in Tanya as a Margrel to every person. So in other words, this is a Tachlif for Yechidus. He writes here that the simple reason why that the Zman, he writes, She'en Hazman, Mafsik, V'hadrich, and Protes Kol Yachid, Mahakel Harav. Ma'akol Harav. The fact that there were so many people, that's a simple reason why the Rebbe couldn't get everyone, because there was so many people. But since everything Hashgacha Pratis, and especially this Indian that he said there had to be a strong dogesh on Teres Chassidus, so this was a hurrah that the Rebbe felt the same thing. There's a hurrah that he felt that it's time because they were the Shabbos, they turned over and changed things in the contracts and they came out wrong. So he realized it's Hashgacha Pratis of timing. The same thing he realized, the same thing is here. The fact that so many people are just physically impossible to meet everybody, that it's time to go and put this down Iksav and put the Sefer together.
So the first came this part, and then came the part of the contracting that they were changing. Because is it a mess?
No. He's writing that he put the Sefer together, Lekutei Amar, they call them Lekutei Amar, because he wrote them down. Questions, did he write them down? Yes, no, yes. The name right. Originally, right. Originally, they were put together as contrasim that people can have, and yes, to be able to give them haras because he could not. You're right.
Yeah.
And later on, they were mishabetzed, so it came together as a printed Tanya.
Did it call
It wasn't
before?
printed.
Did it
This
call
was-
before Tanya, or did it get the name Likutei Amarim only when
Because
he
it could.
printed it?
When he printed it, he put the Kotei Amarim, but we're saying something else now. That the first ones were not necessarily printed.
Right.
They were contrasim, and these contrasim were handwritten, and therefore all these mistakes happened. They were able to do that. Later on, printing it was the next thing. And we know, he writes here, it's known that the last few years by the Rebbe, when they stopped Yechidus, that was this a single Yechidus for every person, individual Yechidus, and they started going to Yechidus as groups, right? Before the wedding, there was a group who went in together. When groups came, they came groups together. They weren't individual Yechidus. And the simple reason is that there wasn't enough time. But in Inyan, the Rebbe itself said many times that this is actually a hurrah from above that this is supposed to be. The same thing as with the Alter Rebbe. And he actually answered somebody that wanted to go into Yechidus. He says, Rebbe, I want to go and have a real Yechidus. The Rebbe wrote, Haisa, Yosef Ezekiel Pashim, meaning that we had already Yechidus. Yechidus Klolis that you had, that was your Yechidus. And it's Kipshkoshin. It's which means that Yechidus Klolis, there's the same type of isyachsus, same kind of paying attention to his questions of each one, and he only has to find. In other words, the Rebbe, when he looked at the Elam and there were 40 people or 50 people there, everybody was counted. The Rebbe was looking at each one. And we see this by many times of Farbrengens, where the Rebbe also looked at one person and said, or the Rebbe when he spoke about something and somebody just came in and realized that person thought it was exactly to him and it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Because the Rebbe considered everybody that was there and was answering each one.
It's like a story like that. Mechtav Klali, someone got a Mechtav Klali and they wanted it. That was writing to everybody.
They were upset that so what happened?
I don't remember the answer exactly, but something like I was answering him. If you want to be obvious, if you understand, fine, I'll give you something just to you.
So the Rebbe did give it this.
Yeah, but the Rebbe said something like, you don't realize that it's really for you, but.
Right. Look, I know that when I was born, there's a letter that the Rebbe sent the mitzvah slowly at that time to my parents, and he said, "This is for your birth of your." I wrote on the bottom, "This was for the birth of your daughter, Mazel." But what did he send it on? On a michtav kloli, and that's how they used to get a lot of answers on michtav kloli that the Rebbe sent out. And but the Rebbe writes here, it's interesting that when you go into that Yinha kiminhag anash b'zman ha'achron shenechnasim le'chidus b'shas hitzvadas. He wrote to somebody that you should have all the minhagim that you have, like people had when they went to Yechidus, but when should you have that? When you go to Farbrengen. When you go to Farbrengen, that's why it used to bother me so much. I went to 770. The kids are sitting by a rally and they're chewing gum. And went to Yechidus, we put on a coat, even in the middle of the summer. We didn't go without it. By the way, by a wedding also, you shouldn't be standing there with anything. You have to have a jacket, no matter how hot it is. It's out of respect.
When in the chuppah,
the same thing is, we went to Yechidus, and the kids are sitting there and chewing gum and doing what they were doing there. And I couldn't. It was interesting because I always felt to myself, when we went to the Rebbetzin, you didn't see that. The Rebbe put himself so low that you were able to do it and nothing was said. When we went to Rebbetzin, we stood outside the Rebbetzin door, we went a few times. And I just remember looking all of us up and down, like there shouldn't be a crease, it shouldn't be a thing. And when we walked in, she went like that.
Whoa.
She prepared the last time I went to her. It was about half a year before Chafei Shvat. So it was my daughter's bas mitzvah, and it was Shemeni's bar mitzvah, whatever. So we used to go in all kinds of things. So we went in there, and the way she set the table, she knew my husband was coming, I was coming, my father, my mother, and the kids. So she said for my father, who was like sort of a diabetic, she had one kind of cake. For my husband, she had sponge cake because she was not eating fancy cakes there. For the kids, she had something else, which was like amazing how she thought of each one. Hello? What's this? Yeah, Yossi, I'm just in the middle of teaching a class now, so I'm going to call you back soon, okay? The board on my head now. And the Rebbe writes that that everybody should pay attention to Sichas HaMaamarim, and they will find an answer to all their questions. Therefore, the Rebbe Rabbeinu in his Akdama here, he answered the Tanis of Chassidim that they want to have Hadracha issues. They want to have a personal yichidus, a personal Hadracha, and according to what they said, you cannot exchange, like you said, this kind of Hadracha in every sefer. So he writes, yes, and in other Sefarim, you're right. Like we said, other Sefarim that don't have that holiness, yes. But Sefer Tanya is to be able to be Memala this Tafkis B'Shleimus. Ain't a Tachlif Ella, I say Inyan. It's a Tachlif, but this is Mamish it. It's the Lavush itself. In Atzmai Lavush Shena. It's the same Inyan, but in a different Lavush, the fact that it came down in a different thing. That's like the Maimer today, that the Rebbe writes there, trying to remember that the Rebbe brings down a mimer. He starts off Habayim from Pesach Vaychi or Shmeis. Habayim Yashreis Yaakov. So he gives two Perushim. The first Yashreis, I think it's according to the New Targum Yonason. So the first one is that Yashreis goes on time for Mashiach. Yeah, that doesn't go on the time of Golas, that you're put there into Golas, then it's a Sharish and you're that. But Dafka, it goes on the Inyan of Gilui. And the other one is, and the second parish is that it's mitzvahs. And that the mitzvahs, and whatever, and it's a whole question of should there be mitzvahs first, because we do mitzvahs and then we bring to the Gula. We're doing mitzvahs and Golas and bring to the Gula. So the Rebbe goes through the whole Maimah there and explains that there's two inyanim and mitzvahs. One of them is a change over the world. The other one you just bring down Hamshacha. So he was talking about that or that Hamshacha. But what he wanted to bring down, that starting off, why does he start with Gula? Gula is not the first thing. And usually when you think of Abayim, Yashris Yaakov, they're going to Mitzrayim, they're going to Golas. The Rebbe wanted Uftan dem Inyan. So Uftan dem Inyan, he wrote it, he said it and wrote it in a Maimer. Because once you add into a Maimer, it becomes part of Torah. Once it's in Torah, the Rebbe does it on. So to bring the Geula, he had to write a certain Inyan, bring that on Sefer, writing it down and becoming part of Torah, because that way the Inyan got Uftan. It's like a very interesting thing. I never saw any and the Maimer. Okay, so we have still time?
She'll be here in 2 minutes.
Okay, so now it says, so we're now going back to the Hagdama now. Hine Mudazos, he starts off. Yeah, you have it, we don't. Mudazos, ki Magola Pumya Danash B'chol Anash. So he says, it's known that Magola Pumya Anash, Rogil B'fi HaNashim Regilin Laima, most people say, then you cannot compare something that's written. Yeah, we did it. He's explaining here now what he just said, how all that we just said is what he was trying to bring out. Okay, so whatever. I feel a bit secret here, and explains word for word about that general concept that he just said. Another person on board. Nachum, I'll call you back soon, okay? Yossi Spalter just called. Yossi Spalter. I said I'm middle of class. I'll call you later. Okay, I'll talk to you before I talk to him. Bye. So basically, I don't know if you want to go into this, but he explains that all the things that we just read, he explains them here. So I don't know if we want to do this now or not. But basically, I'll say for Tanya is going to do this. It's a mismeris to everybody and give them an answer to what there was. Okay? So let's just go generally. So Rebbe right so you continue saying, Rebbe makir et kulam. The Sefer Tanya now is a hadracha issues for every single person. And anybody that just wants could find an answer to all his problems of Eitz Hashem, because the Rebbe knows him personally. Like it says, it's kol ha'tshuvos l'kol ha'she'elos. So everybody's included. And the pashut of meaning of this is that the Rebbe knows personally not only the chassidim that come to him, and therefore you wrote a Sefer Hadracha just to them, which is, okay? But then you'd say that it's missing things, because some people don't come in, they're the other side of the world, especially years ago. So you're right, Sharei Ma'oz Ksiv Sefer. Since then, also you could say also the Rebbe only did it to the people of that time. What does it have to do with me today? But since then, there's already hundreds of thousands of Siddim new ones that never went to the Rebbe. And so how could it be the Rebbe writes to every person? And so he says, if he Pirush Kapshute means that Bilvad לפי פירוש זה כפשוטי בלבד, הרי כל אלה שאחרי דור של הרב, and all that, what about the people that are in other generations till then? How could you say that this all fits in, that to this light of the Alter Rebbe we should all be going, that this is going to bring us to Mashiach? So he says that therefore he's trying to say there's something much deeper to this. And according to the Pirush HaMekubal, according to Siddim, what does he mean when he says that it's for everybody? He says the kavanah is to all those who will learn Tanya for Mashiach Shidkenu. And even after this, because the Rebbe knows every single person, every single Jew personally, anyone that their sefer is going to reach him, he knows them. Because since the Rebbe is a Neshama Klolis and Rosh Bnei Yisrael, right, which the name of Rebbe is Rosh Bnei Yisrael, that all the Neshamas are Klulos Bo, they're all in him, they're all connected to him. And just like Shem Shekol Kaychas HaNefesh Kulim B'Meich Shemesh, just like all the Nefesh are in the Meich, are in the Reish, and whether a person is small or a person big, they're all there, like it says in paraphrase of Tanya. And if so, then every single person that learns Tanya becomes one of the Rebbe's Yaidai Umakirai, the people that I know and I recognize. What's this? Makirai, okay? The Imkain, so therefore the Sefer is a Sefer Adracha to every single Jew that's going to learn it. And if he just wants, he will find an answer to all his faith. And the Rebbe, so it says, and the truth is that we know that the Alter Rebbe was an Ish Emes, and every single us that he wrote was 100% Meduya. So therefore he is Achrei when he writes every single word, and therefore when he says, without any doubt, that it's an answer to every single question that anybody can ever have, it means that anybody can find. Wow. Beautiful image.
So interesting. Why we check in the Igros and we don't go to the Tanya?
I was going to say something else. Now we can understand the Igros. In other words, people say, what do you find an answer in Igros? What is this? The Rebbe didn't write the letter to you, wrote to somebody else in a different part, about a different Indian. Why do you do that? And the answer is, we already got the Hadrach from the Alter Rebbe. What's the difference? The difference is that this Rebbe is our Rebbe. Mm-hmm. All the Rebbeim are our Rebbes, but personally, most was our Rebbe, a Rebbe of our generation. And this is so. And for us, Tanya definitely gives us a rise. But since we're in a lower Madrega today, and we talk about a lot of more Gashmistik and Yanim, there was a complaint there. You know, the Rebbe once said to somebody, you come to me when it comes, you're asking me about a business. I'm not a mumcham business. You come to me about medicine. That's what, got a doctor. And Aved Hashem, you know yourself. Come to me about something that it's my business. So you trust me to things that are not my business. You have to trust. You know, basically, the way our generation is, and also there was something that Rebbe said, you know, something, come to me with ruchnias, don't come to me with your gashmistical problems. You know what I'm saying? But our generation is extremely negotiable, and we need personal adrach. I mean, I sat last night, I had some really pressing issues. You know what I'm saying? That I don't understand how people live without it. I must be honest with you. I just don't understand. I mean, I have to make up my mind. I do something as far as certain businesses. I have to decide for somebody. And every single was meduya. Can I trust this person? There was an answer about, you know, so the person made a comment like it's a young person that you trust young people. The Rebbe writes there how the young, you know, lahazir is a ketanim ala gedalim. Gedalim ala ketanim, and the Rebbe writes later the ketanim are going to be able to help the gedalim because they have that keiches. We ask whether or not maybe to use a certain falsha name instead of real name. The Rebbe gives a name of a person that lived in Yerushalayim years ago and exactly his birthday and where he lived. To answer that question, that we were able to do that. It's like I couldn't. Mamish amazing. And then I had, you know, some issues that happened in school that I wrote, and the Rebbe and some things I didn't understand. By this morning already, I understood it. You know what I'm saying? It just, if you really believe it, if you're really there, you get personal adracha, and it's definitely to me like a yechidus, you know. Now, can I get in Tanya? Of course, you learn Tanya, and it teaches you how to live your life. But on a personal thing that I have today, I remember years ago, like still looking Igros, this and that. So I went to someone's house and they Igros. I opened it, looked what he said, and the answer was right there.
But I heard in the past, the people say, where do you take it from? In the past, people used to sometimes open Chumash of Tehillim. It doesn't come from nowhere.
My grandfather was in Russia, and they were mamish penniless in the war. And he had his first daughter, not his first, his second daughter, was born and passed away. There was no medicine to be gotten. They wanted to run the room. He taught in the room during the day. He came to bedroom at night. That's what they ate. That's what they slept. My grandmother was one of the Garabis who came with, her mother had so many rings they didn't know what to do with them. And they had a house this place so they moved into. They were so wealthy. And now she went and married my grandfather and walked and worked out. That's it. It's the opposite. And then another child was born, and she lived a few months, and she got very sick, and they didn't know whether or not to go on the serious nefesh in war times and try to get medicine, whether she's going to live from it or not, or it was psychotic. And he opened up a chumash, and the chumash says,
Oh.
and she died. So to me, like when people talk about Igris, like, this is what they did all the years. This is what they did. It's famous. But it's interesting how it already starts with the Tanya. Like this part of it I never knew. How to put the Amar and put together the Yechidus for every person. And the truth is, it is Adracha. And we learn it. We all see the words in a way that's negated to us. I remember when I learned Tanya, I was 12 years old. This was a present I got from my father. I got a mitzvah present. Okay, we went through all of Tanya. And I used to walk in the street, and my whole hashkafa changed. I mean, I grew up with Chidim, I grew up in Beis Rivka, and I grew up, and I was a very frumta girl. But it had nothing to do with all of a sudden seeing a ruchnistic world. I mean, Skafia was a Skafia, and Sapa Halavaya would be on the Drake Madriga was on that. Yeah. But but if you private the Skafia seriously, the Albert of them, I took every word like this is the way I have to live. Today, when I read through it, if we put ourselves into it, there's no question that this changes our life. And we see the ruchnis and everything. We just live a different kind of life. We see these people are having a hard time with mitzvahs. So why are they having a hard time with mitzvahs? Because they're nerves. So that makes a difference when you can look at something in a different way. So the Rebbe continues here about the inner mashpiyim. But still, there are Jews. There are a lot of people that are mamin in a munash lema, that this is be'emes a hardracha for them, but they don't find what they're looking for. And the Rebbe answers this. Because shadaitam ktsara. If your das is kotzer, then you can't. And that's why the Alter Rebbe says, and we didn't finish this thing here, and that was the end of what we didn't read yet. Then, that basically, if you still can't find your answer here, because your das is too kotzer to understand it, and that goes on our generation, then you should go to the Gedolim in your city, and they're going to show you. So the Rebbe then already, Rabbeinu, meaning the Alter Rebbe already made the Inyan Mashpiyim in every place, that their job was to be madrik everybody according to the Hayras of Sefer Tanya. And them to find in Tanya the right thing, what to tell their Mushpayim and to explain it to them. And only then, Yavinuhu, Ela Yavainuhu. Lairak Yavinuhu, Ela Yavainuhu. You see it here? They're going to build. She's Vainin, Bachachetev, Yasin the Ezat Hashpah B'Payel. Yavainanu, they're going to make him understand, and you could say even they're going to build him. Where is this? I'm sorry. We didn't finish this. Yeah. Umi shadai taktsar lav va'etzim mitachot tretz and yafris sechatzim tekdon shebirov emin of yevananuhu. Eleim b'kashi shelo lasum yad b'pen. It's nag b'anav b'shifta shel sheker chatz shalom. When people go to them, they shouldn't all of a sudden become big anavim and say, I can't do it. The Gaidel Haschar Mimaim Razal Api Mer Einish Neim Hashem Kiar Hashem Panavilem Arpnei Melch. I feel that way very strongly. And when somebody comes to me and they ask me for an eitzah, then all of a sudden I feel like the Rebbe should put it into my head. It's really not you. It's like a story like that when the Rebbe went onto the wagon, he became a Rebbe. All of a sudden you have kechus. When somebody turns to you as a mashpia, you have kechas of mashpia which you can have before. That's if you have that bittul. I still find that a lot of people don't give right things because they don't have that bittul and they think that the eitzah is theirs. But if you take it as a job seriously, that you want me to help you because you know what I'm saying, and I'm giving you just as a keli, then you have that kechas. Or mechaya chayim is a or mechaya chayim is a yizakenu v'yechayenu yam mashallah yilamdu oid ishas ve'ev v'kulim v'evoisi. There'll come a time when all of them wissen mehr. Kimal aretz dance Hashem, etc. And then the Rebbe, and he writes here, and after the special contrast and B'kerev Kol Hanash, Batakas Rabbi, they saw from Shana Mishunim, that's what they say. They read about Takas Shana's Rabbu Kumai Rabbu Atausim, Yeah, the made. Zilza is not valucham, and therefore, Baruch Hashem, there are people that gave money that they could print these things. What's Ayin Lamed? I don't know. The Troich, the Gufam, they were Matriach and Gufam, Ma'aidim, which they the money to bring these Kanesim and Alabais Atfus, and they were Menukim, they're clean for Kol Sigma to Usim, Toy Seifer, Seifer Seches, Umogoyim Hated, Amina, Lapalatava, Yasha, Chela, those who worked on it, Nashikeach, there's Kimikra Malagir Akatsav, Arav Masik Vol Eyu, Arav by Klola Nidu, Chatsu Shalom. Yeah? And right to the Chas V'Sholom, it shouldn't be mattresses, loyally, they atzma, nobody can do it, that's what he writes later, for 5 years, nobody can do it, so it shouldn't be any mistakes.
Let's see what is that there.
Any competition, also, right, what?
Let's see what, maybe they're gonna say what this Rashi table. Ayin Lamed.
Ayin Lamed?
No, what was it? Isha Fati.
Where are you?
No, I'm not in the right place.
So it's the Sefer, the special control is already here. That's just the yeah.
Maybe
The Eveladaf. Maybe. Wait, where is it again? Yeah, I'm sure there's on the phone. I do a secret. I should need to see where it is over there. At what point is it?
Hey.
Right.
Hey. How are you?
Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's start with Tanya and Sway. Hi. They enjoyed you very much in the high school.
Oh, good. Who?
The group of
the young girls.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Ms. Labkowski, if you see Yuji and her friend, just tell them they're here. Thank you.
Yeah.
And my cousin.